On today's Success or Excuses podcast, we have Kristian Melson. Kristian, welcome to Success or Excuses podcast.
Thanks for having me on, James.
Listen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So yes, I'm Kristian. I'm founder and director of Obsessed. We're a operations consultancy. We've been going probably best part of maybe 6 months so far, but we've been working for a few months before setting up and everything else. So yeah, my background's in operations management, and just got to a point where I just really wanted to start doing it for myself, helping other customers, clients, myself. And so I moved up from Hertfordshire about 6 years ago to Scotland. Absolutely love it here. I've got a little 1-year-old son at home, and my wife and some pets and everything else. I'm absolutely loving life at the moment.
So I love the name Obsessed.
Yes.
Op is obviously operations, and I am obsessed with this. Go tell us a little bit about background on that.
So
what makes you obsessed?
Obsessed. So I was trying to come up with a name for the business and something that was catchy and it was a good brand. So I'd been working for a few months on my own as a sole trader, and I was going under Kristian Melson Consulting. But my name didn't really carry as much. So I thought, well, who's going to go with me for that? So I was like, okay, it's time to start the business as well. I was looking at, it's time to become a business. I was a sole trader on the basis that, it was my easy get out of jail card in case I needed to get a job.
Easy peasy, just go in, do your thing.
But I could do it. And I thought, no, let's commit. Let's become a company now, and wanted a really nice name. So it was actually my wife who came up with the name. She was like, Op, and we were going through different kind of, versions of Op. What could it turn into? And we had loads of different versions. We initially started with obsession, but then we thought it sounded too much like oppression, which is then negative, and then so we then settled on Obsessed. And then I worked with Kate, one of my amazing designers, who made our logo. Made it into a little affinity that turned the O into a P, and that's where we came. So Obsessed is obsessed about operations, and that's very much our brand. Is that we are just absolutely obsessed with continuous improvement and operational efficiency. Why?
I always like to ask the why, because I've got a great why I started a business. What's your why? What was that kind of trigger? You thought, you know what, I think I can do something for myself. What was the trigger?
So I had always had this little itch to start my own business. From when I was 18, I started a football coaching business. And again, I didn't really go into it with any kind of proper money. I just thought, let's just do this. And I didn't give it any time of day. I'd done a few little sessions.
You played with it?
I did. And I don't know, I didn't really commit too much into it. And I kind of stopped it and then went into full-time work. And then over the years, what I noticed, I was in jobs and I loved it and I was doing really well in all these different jobs. But after about a year and a half, I was getting a little bit bored, probably, in all honesty. I was finding issues with the companies I was at, and I was moving on. So from my early 20s, I'd have a job like every year. And then I kind of just fell into more kind of operational roles. So when I first started, I used to work for Ladbrokes head office down in London. Then I was at Betfair as well, looking after all their overnight sports. And
huge organisation.
They're huge. And whereas after that, I went into kind of smaller companies where you can make a lot more change. And I think that's something I liked as well. I didn't like the big red tape machines.
And it takes forever to make anything change. Worked in corporate most of my career.
And it was frustrating as anything to go into that. So went into some smaller companies. But again, I was finding that same point about a year or two in. I was just like, look, I like making big changes and going in and really doing it. So I thought, why not do this for myself? And one of the kind of drivers, I was in a previous role and I was just like, I think I could make myself redundant here. I could make, if you're in ops, ultimate sign of success is you're not needed anymore because everything's running perfectly. So I moved.
But does anything ever run perfectly?
No. As best as you can.
Because it just changes and changes.
So I got to a point where I could make myself redundant, really. I could give everything else to the rest of the team. And by doing that, I was like, okay, well, I've done what I can do here. So yes, it was a sign of a success. And I thought, okay, from that, what I can do is let me work in, and this whole new word, fractional, had kind of come out, and everyone was talking about fractional this, which is, it's a nice way of saying, also, a lot of time people say, that's just part-time, isn't it? Yeah. But no, it's for certain organizations, you might need a COO or an ops manager.
You might not have the money for it.
Exactly.
So think, okay, I'll bring somebody that's already got experience that's not going to cost me, $70,000, $80,000 a year, pounds pounds a year or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. So we set up from there, and then luckily, again, because I had a good network, and I did a lot of networking last year. So whilst I was kind of setting up, I did a kind of couple part-time roles.
Yeah.
So I did want to set up on my own, and I said, that's it, we're committing, I'm doing it. And then 2 weeks later, found out we were having a baby, and I thought, maybe I can't do my little passion project just now. So I got worked at a little fintech company on a part-time role. So I did that on a fractional basis, but I was employed. And then kind of trying to kind of build something up a little bit more. And then about a month before our baby was due, I was like, I need a full-time role now. So I got a job through someone I knew in networking.
Everything changes. You get this little baby and you're the man.
I know. And you think like, oh, we're going to do all this at once. And we moved house as well the same week as well.
Oh,
so
dear.
Baby, house,
Been there,
new
done
job.
that.
It was horrendous, and I absolutely loved it, but it was just so busy. And so I got a full-time role through someone I knew in networking, one of the best bosses I had actually. And, but I got to a point when some people started getting in contact just organically. And again, I've been out there networking. People I used to work with as well who'd gone on to start their own businesses, got in contact. They knew what I could do in operations. And then just kind of built from there. So I started as a sole trader, and then in October I started Obsessed, and we've just been going on from there.
Amazing. Great. I've got a really good question for you. I've been in operations most of my career as well. What makes a great ops person?
Great ops.
Here's a question for you. What makes a great... By the way, because what I'm hearing, right, I'm not answering it for you, but what I'm hearing is leadership is the key here.
Yes.
So in your words, what makes a great ops person? Because I'll tell you why I say that, right? Because you mentioned that you build your people, you delegate, you empower them to be great at what they do, which basically makes you redundant. Yeah, that's basically what you said there. That to me is great leadership.
Yes.
Right? That's like leadership 101. Build great people. Don't worry about the rest. Build great people, because you're hiring these individuals because they're experts at what they do. But anyway, without me jumping, what's a great ops person?
I think that's you kind of hit nail on the head. It's about being that kind of. You're a great leader. You're helping other people do what they. If you have to step in and do something, something's wrong. An ops person, should be leading the process, leading the continuous improvement, but not necessarily the one who's always doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. If they keep relying on you, if I'm doing it, one, can it be automated? Two, how can you make it as efficient as possible? And three, keep questioning, what's the point of this process? And that's, I think, something a good ops person needs to be, is somebody constantly questions everything. And some people in places I've worked, they've absolutely despised me for it. They've said, why are you always coming quite negative? I was like, I have to be that person. I have to question, why is it that we're doing this? What's the purpose of this process?
Great leadership is asking great questions of yourself and of others.
Exactly. And I'd do an exercise sometimes with clients. We'd go and we'd do a big process map. We'd go look for everything that they're doing, and we'd see bits of process. And I remember once I was speaking to a company, and they said, okay, well, we print off this form. And I said, well, where does this form go? They said, oh, we don't really know. It just sits in this tray. And I was like, what's the point? And we found out there's this whole process and loads of bits of this process. So we can imagine that you're drawing them up on like a cork board, like one of these little murder ones. You're pinning people together. But if
everything links.
Everything links. But if there was like a piece of string that just hangs down, we call them like danglers. And I was like, well, that's just a process. That means it's got no purpose. So let's get rid of it. Let's trim it and make it as easy as possible. Yeah. But I think for being a good ops leader or just a general leader, I think people forget that it's a skill. It's a really, really important skill to have. And it's not just something that I think a lot of companies struggle, because you're really good in the area that you're good in. And you think the next
really good engineer, really good project manager, really good salesperson. Let's promote them.
Oh, I know. Like
we don't mind set training, no skill set training, nothing, no formal leadership training.
And they become and it's a whole new skill set. Whereas I like to think I'm more of a kind of professional manager, whereas I'm maybe not amazing at the functions of a business. That's why I've worked in loads of different industries, but you don't need to know those industries.
100%. I want to stick to that. Keep going, because this is the key point.
And so I noticed. So my first role. Do you remember the British Home Stores?
Yes.
I
do. Before they went bust.
Yeah. And so I used to work down in.
They were huge as well.
Massive. Yeah. Massive. So I used to work. Yes. And so I used to.
That's where everybody shopped. See, when I was younger, that's where you shop. That's where you get your school clothes and all that.
Yeah.
So there wasn't Primark and all that stuff.
I was 16 when I started there, and I used to work in the out of hours section. But again, I just naturally just end up working. and just kind of like taking the lead. And someone left, and this new store manager came in and just saw me and said, "Hey, you should really lead this team." So I'm at sixth form. I was just like, okay, that was my first experience of management. And I remember at the time being, they've upped my pay from £5.15 to £6.25 an hour. I'm making it. I had the keys to the store, and I remember like showing off to my mates and girls at school. Look, I've got the keys to the store at 16, 17. No one cared. I think they did care for my Arcadia discount though. But like that.
That's right. It was Arcadia that owned it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and a lot of other businesses.
Oh, Philip Green.
It's another story.
Maybe I would slander myself, talk about him. But but I've noticed in my roles, again, I just took a natural kind of like leadership role. And yeah, like you said, we'll come back to what you were saying about, not being kind of like sector agnostic, about having that skill, because ultimately management in, like you said, oil and gas where you worked in, or e-commerce, gambling, grounds maintenance, events, that again, the people who are doing the job, they're the ones focusing on that. You just need to how to lead them. You still need to know little, bits about how a certain process works.
Yeah.
But it's all process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why you hire really good people though. So my take on it is, if you're a great ops manager, right, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? And I call it, so you say management, I say leadership, right?
Yeah.
Because management and leadership, as you do, a lot of people use them in the kind of same sentence, we'll call it, right? So management, leadership, but they're actually two completely different things, right? But they're very intertwined. They might be two completely different things, but they're very, very intertwined. And I always say this, right? Put me in any industry. Any industry. Yes, my background is oil and gas. Yeah, I've started a company and you turned in a 1.6 million turnover.
Yeah.
Put me in any industry and I will build you one hell of a successful team.
Yeah.
Because I know how to develop people.
Yes.
And I think that's what ops is all about. Yes, you've got P&L responsibility. Yes, you've got, the buck stops at your feet in terms of, revenue and profit and, everything. But I also have this, and this is through past experiences, the better you are at developing your people, the more successful you become as an operational role, in my opinion.
100%. And again, it gets to a point that sometimes I've been in a role and I felt maybe I'm a bit of a fraud, because not appreciating actually that my leadership skills are what's actually making the team work. Because I'm sitting there sometimes sitting back and making sure everyone's doing best they can, but maybe it looks like, what on paper am I doing? But actually motivating that team, building them up. And I remember I used to work in events, and we used to always have the most junior people would come into my team. And my role was to develop them, to get them into the production team, and they become some of the most amazing people I've seen their kind of career trajectory. And again, that's from empowering them, supporting them, being there for them, and like fighting for them and fighting for their development and doing that. And actually, that in itself is, if they're doing a good job, your department's doing well. And it doesn't have to be you doing all the work. You're just leading them to do it. So sometimes it can look a little bit lazy.
Got a great story on that, right? So I remember working for a large oil and gas company, and I had been promoted into a senior role. And I was quite a junior person, but I was promoted into a senior role because of my capabilities and drive. And, it was really about drive, not necessarily experience. And I had a guy who reported to me, and this person, big American guy, and he'd been running his own product line for 25 years, and all of a sudden I'm his boss, right? The way they amalgamated the company, everything changed. All of a sudden I'm like, I want to say the boss is the wrong word, I was the manager or the leader, we'll like to say, of that part of the business. And this guy, and I'm going to ask a question after, right? This guy would come to my office, right? So I was only in the role weeks, and used to come to my office every day and chat the door. Hi, come in, his name was John. Come in, John. I wouldn't say his second name though. Come in, John. So John, he'd come in, hey James. He's like, listen, American accent, don't know why, but he was American. He'd come in and he would say, hey James, I've got this problem. And I would say, okay. I says, so tell me, John, what exactly is the problem? He'd say, it's this, the firefighting, whatever it was. And I'd say, you know what, John, I agree. That's a problem. I says, what do you suggest that we do about that problem? He's like, well, I don't know, James. And I'd say, if you did know, what would you do to solve that problem? He says, well, I would probably do this. I think it's a great idea, John. Why don't you go do that? 2 days later, come in, John. James, got a problem, firefight, so whatever it was, challenge. I'd say the same thing. What exactly is the problem? The word exactly was really key here, because it got them to think about, okay, what's exactly the problem? Because a lot of people get in, and by the way, there's a purpose of the conversation, right? And then this happened every other day, right, for about a month and a half. He'd come in, chat the door, and I'd say, I agree it's a problem. What do you suggest that we do about the problem? And I'd say, yeah. And at the end, I would always say, are you empowered? Do you have the skill sets to actually execute that? Yes, of course I do, James. Go do it. Anyway, month and a half later, comes to my door and chat. And he says, James, okay if I shut the door? I've got a personal question for you. I says, of course. Shut the door. Pours the two of coffee. So I'm thinking, right, coffee. I don't know what this is coming here. Pours us a coffee and we sit at the desk. And I says, was something wrong, John? He says, I wouldn't say wrong. He says, but he says every day or every other day for the last month and a half, I've came into your office with a problem, a challenge, a solution, something firefighting. And every single time I ask you, you say, you agree it's a problem. You want me to clarify what exactly is a problem. You then ask me, what do I suggest that we do to resolve the problem? And you then ask me, are you empowered? And I go away and execute it. He says, so there's one or two things happening here. He says, number one, you haven't a clue what my job is. Or number two, you're trying to empower me. And I turn and says to him, John, what do you think? And I shut up. And he just laughed. Now, think about his previous manager. The fact that he was coming to my office, chatting the door. What do you think his previous manager, so every time he'd a problem, he'd go to the office door, what do you think his previous manager used to do?
Just would solve it.
Would solve it. And that's bad leadership, because you're not empowering your people to come up with the answers. And guess what? He's right. I didn't know enough about his product line to tell him how to fix his problems. But what I was good at is people. I was great at bringing the best out of my people. And I think that's what makes a great operation, a great anything, because I always think you can be a leader at any level of business or organisation. It doesn't really matter, whether you're at the top or, storeroom manager or whatever, supervisor. If you can influence people for the better and to grow and develop them, I think you're a great leader.
Yeah.
So my point was, that's kind of what you mentioned when you said about, developing your people and allowing them, and kind of almost making your job redundant, to paraphrase on it. What, in your opinion, obviously this is what you do, operations and helping with different operations. What's the biggest challenge that you generally see when you go into a company who needs your help? What's the challenge?
The biggest challenge I've had, so this is probably going back to when I maybe was in full-time work. There would be companies that I'd go into and leaders would either be, I'd find that the leader at the top would either be maybe
does it mean to see the leaders just go at the top?
Whoever is maybe CEO or MD is either they are commercially focused or operationally focused. And what I find
based on their background and experience.
Yes.
Yeah. So if they've been in finance, they're commercially focused.
Yeah.
They've come through ops and engineering, they're ops focused.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes you go into that and they're focused on the company, or what they value ops at is, again, dependent. So if there's someone's a commercial background, they think that, ops is just something that happens. And I'll give you a little story. I've talked about it before on LinkedIn. I worked at a company. I won't say who they are in case someone listens. So we used to do operations. We did all logistics. We had 150 odd freelancers that we'd call upon. We would get everything out the door, and we would deliver it. There was so much that we did. And then he'd come round, but he used to do a monthly, he'd stand on a table and do a kind of company presentation, how we're all doing, and he'd say, town hall, yes,
or toolbox talk, as I used to call them.
And he would talk to everyone, say, this department did this, we delivered all of this, and he'd always get that, and he'd all try and G everyone up. And he came into the ops department, considering what we had done, again, all that we had booked, and everything that happened behind the scene, the facilities as well, health and safety, all the ISO standards we looked after. And he just came through, and he wanted to get a kind of metric for us for the presentation. And he said, how many gallons of milk did you order? Or loaves of bread. I think it was loaves of bread. How many loaves of bread did you order in the last kind of quarter? So I was like, okay, well, here you go. I didn't know why he wanted it. Gave him the stat. And then, he did this big town hall and he talked about all the amazing work the department did. And ops came down to, look, this is the amount of bread that you ordered. And I was like, is that what you think of? That's what you think of ops. We do so much more. So I suppose going back to your original questions.
Ops that keep the money coming in.
Oh, I know. Anything only
health
happens.
And safety, everything falls under ops. I mean, let's be honest. Everything falls under operations. Oh, yeah. Because the buck stops at your feet.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem sometimes when I describe what I do to people. I spoke to my family a few years ago and they think I work in HR because sometimes, again, in operations, I worked in a role where ops included HR. Yep. One time I worked in ops and it included finance. I was in charge of all the payroll and everything. One time it includes, again, health and safety, facilities management. Ops is everything but the main function. But how you do that main function of the business is operations. And so I'd say the biggest challenge is, again, it's getting that buy-in from above about the importance of ops, the importance of process, because it's not particularly sexy in a lot of places. You know, how do we do something? Because they're not seeing that. That's not what they're selling to clients. But having a company that's, you know, as efficient and streamlined as possible means that if you were to, and this is what I say to clients, let's allow you to double in size, but not have to double your team.
How would you do it?
Yeah.
That's what ops does, isn't it?
Yes.
It's really what systems, what processes, what, you know, scope of work, everything, you know, processes, what's in place. And by the way, I really get this right, because when I built the Power Within, I built it with one thing in mind, was growth. And ultimately exit, right?
Yeah.
But growth and exit. And when I look at other training companies, and this is with it being disrespectful to other training companies in any way, shape or form, when I look at other training companies of our size, right, they are not even close to the systems and processes. Our CRM, right, literally brings in a lead. It's all self-built, but well, designed and developed by us, designers to do it. Lead comes in, and it never leaves the CRM right until you're a customer, a client, and then you go into our learning management system and you still never leave the CRM right until your certificate's issued.
Yeah.
And then we've got a wee timer, you know, for different training to recontact you. It never leaves the CRM. And the reason for that was growth. Because when we first started, I didn't expect the business to grow this fast. So when we first started, we invested money in a CRM. But it hit its limit really quickly.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't fit for purpose any longer, because we needed to do this and this and this and this to take away, and going back to what you said, to take away on the manual side of the business, you know, handling emails, phone calls. Our CRM takes care of everything now, like everything, and what it allows you to do. So if, let's say when I win 2 or 3 tenders this year and I can double the size of a business, I don't need to change my systems and processes. I don't need to change anything. It's there. It's digital. It just handles whatever we throw at it.
Yeah, and again, I'd say even, you know, the process when you asked me to come on the podcast, the process that you've got, the automatic emails that I get a week out, an hour out from everything else, that obviously comes from your CRM and it's all been booked. But you're not having to sit there and think, I've got Kristian coming on a podcast.
It's the same CRM, by the way, it's just the podcast side of it.
Is Zoho?
Zoho.
You on?
Nice. Absolutely brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, so I used to use Zoho. It's really good. But I know HubSpot really well.
The problem with HubSpot is to get it to do what we do would be costing me probably 200,000, 300,000 a year to get HubSpot to do what we've got to do. Remember, our CRM isn't just CRM, an LMS. It's also, we use for HR, you know. So when let's say you got onboarded, so as soon as I send you an offer letter out, right? So the offer letter's obviously, it's all there, so you just fill in your details. As soon as that offer letter's sent out, my CRM picks up that you've read it, that you've signed it, and then it starts the onboarding process. Absolutely no manual input at all, and it starts the whole process. And then once you sign, we make everybody sign an NDA, and it's once they've done all that, they've filled out all their information, then and only then does the contract employment get sent out. Right at the very end. So offer letter acceptance, NDA, employee information, set up the banking and everything like that. And then and only then, there's a manual thing, you click a wee button and it sends it the contract employment.
Nice.
All taken care of, totally automated.
Yeah, so imagine, you have to hire people, you're not thinking, this is going to be a lot of admin, getting everything sorted.
And it used to be, that was the problem. I mean, you would go away and you would forget to hand, you know, somebody would accept a job, they'd be the company a year and they're like, if I give you your contract employment, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, the thing is, you know, you don't think about that because you're busy running your business. And you're moving on from that. A company I used to work at, I think we had about 200 freelancers on our books, and we used to have this system, but we'd worked out that to get any freelancer on board could be anything about up to 20 emails back and forth. And that could be over 3 or 4 weeks. Because again, email, I'll just pick up the phone normally, talk about these things, get out of the way and move it on. But no, people loved emailing. So we moved it into a system called WorkSuite. I think it's a freelancer management system. And we put it on there, we create these workflows. And again, it put them through testing, and then it onboarded them, give them the contracts that needed. And we worked out that, you know, by putting that in place, it turned 20 emails back and forth. And we worked out it was probably about 3 hours work from our HR person side each time, easily. There were 2 manual checks that you need to do, and they were literally, I think it was 2 clicks on each one to progress them or reject them. And they would get all of that. And so we've worked out, we were able to take on like 80 or 90 more freelancers that would have taken us, again, days and days. We suddenly had this amazing pool of people because we could. So again, quality improved, time was reduced, and it just seemed simple, just again, for a simple software license. And I think that's something, again, I try and put through to people. People see expensive software licenses, and I was like, I'd rather a software license than a full-time member of staff. Because, you know, national insurance,
depending on the software.
Depending on the software. Yes, there are sometimes
there's lots of really good things out there. There's lots of not so good things out there.
Yes, and yeah, I do like hubs. I help people put it in from a sales and marketing side, but I wouldn't use it for internal, internal HR or anything else. And it certainly has.
Well, we've got an HR company that actually handles our HR.
Oh, really?
The HR.
Yeah.
But the system handles the paperwork side.
Yes. Brilliant. But yeah, I think, you know, if you can do that and it saves you time, you should consider it. But also don't be like a lot of companies I speak to. They see a piece of tech and they say, okay, and they've got, maybe they're a small company with 8 or 9 people that have got 12 different systems, one for project management, one for the CRM, one for calendar management and everything else. I was like, no, don't do that, because people won't use it. And the second people don't use it, it becomes pointless, and you're missing parts of the process, and you don't, you know, do you even have that process defined? And, you know, we use, a company I use, they use ClickUp, they use Slack, they use something else for time tracking, and I was like, people aren't going to do it because it gets lost, and the whole day is just spent
exactly why we didn't do that.
Systems. Yeah,
it's exactly why we did. And by the way, they're all great pieces of software on their own, but the limitations that they come with, and that was why. I mean, we really did. I actually got two of our senior employees to spend about 6 months going through every kind of CRM, you know, pros, cons, cost, everything, to come up with the one that was fit for purpose. And Zoho came out top. I've got a question for you. Have you ever had a really great leader in your past?
Great leader? Oh, yes. I would say when I used to work at Ladbrokes. I used to have the manager, and she was absolutely...
Was that she?
She, yes.
Yeah, some of the best managers.
You know what, I'd say when I've worked in places before, female managers are so much better, because they haven't got what... I don't want to put... I know it's something that's very, very, you know, close to you about, you know, women in management and leadership. But I find that... I'm
a huge male ally, I like to call myself.
Yeah. But I find sometimes that a lot of men have egos, and that really gets in the way of when they're, you know, how they lead, how they manage. But I find... When I was at Ladbrokes head office, there was she was absolutely fearless. She would go and she'd challenge anything. She'd go in and she'd always fight for her team, always fight for you know, what's best for that department and everything else. And that's just inspired me. You know, just go and get it done. Don't faff around. Don't beat around the bush at all. And again, she was just herself, and it was great. And she was a fantastic manager. Got things done, and she trusted people, and she trusted me a lot. So I learned a lot.
Probably, you know, developed her people. You know, 'cause I always find that with great with really great leaders. I like to say managed leaders. Great leaders is, if I think about the companies, and I will talk at once, but when I think about the companies that we work with, now we work with some really, really, really huge companies, and the ones that invest in their people are the ones that tend to be the most successful. There's this company that we work with, and they're an incredible company. I'm going to. The guy is called Paul Dodsworth. Paul, this is for you. This is what you call a leader. He is so committed to making his team the best. You know, the way that he talks about the team, and his vision, and his support for high potential employees, for young employees. It's an absolute pleasure to actually watch. You know that? It's just to sit from a distance and see this guy operate it's incredible, and that's, for me, is a great leader. And he's such a likeable character as well. But it's that kind of leadership that, to me, is what makes great companies, is having leaders like that at the helm.
And that's the thing. You're only as good as the team that you've got, and especially in I work with small companies, and you know, if you've not got someone who's, you know, is fully invested, or you know, if they constantly just want to take everything on, you're not gonna grow. You need, especially when these people, you know, they're not just working one role. They might be, they're doing this one role, but they also do bits of marketing. They also do something else. They have to be fully invested, but you have to allow them to do it. And I've worked in different companies. Again, there's been people with some great strengths. I worked with some really introverted bosses, some again commercially driven, operationally driven. The last kind of full-time role that I had was with a bit of a local networking. Have you heard of Bart before? He's Edinburgh Connections.
I know Bart.
But he's a friend of Colin. Have you met Colin?
Yes, I know Colin too.
Yeah, so
he calls himself Scotland's #1 networker or something. Yeah, I know both of them.
And he's like one of the best bosses I had, again, because he's just the nicest guy and just allows you to get on. And the thing as well is he has trust in his team. He hires people because he trusts them. Yeah. So I want to repay that faith, and I do the best job I can, because again, also you want to make sure you're working for the person that you're doing. I'm doing this because I want them to their business to grow, and if you're working and succeed, and if you're doing that, it gives that little extra motivation, and he'll reward you as well, and he'll trust you as well. So again, you've got these different, again, you can have some people who are a little bit more maybe harsher with people who could be maybe better leaders in that because they're pushing people, but
and it's a fine balance. I always say this as well, that about leadership. Leadership's a tough gig, right? Because as well as trying to develop your people and developing yourself, developing your people, building a great business, you've got to make tough calls as well. If someone is not a good fit for your team, don't wait. You need to let some people go, and it's probably the hardest part, in my opinion, a job is when you realise that people are not a good fit. You try and develop them, you put in the time, you give them the training, you put in the effort, I call it genuinely invest in the person. I mean, really sit down and really try and understand. And some people are just like, this isn't for me, but they won't say it because they're holding on to a job. Yeah. And I think that great leadership also recognises that and sits down and says to the person, maybe this isn't the right role for you. Is there something else within the business that we could maybe have a look at? And if there's not, maybe not being part of companies is also a good thing for you. Yeah. And I always think that's what makes a great leader. Like, that's another great characteristic, is you've got to make tough calls. People are looking up to you to make that tough call. Okay, we're kind of getting there, so we've got another 5 minutes or so left to go. What would you say are the biggest challenges that people bring? So what's the kind of things that if I know there's everything's different, and every challenge and every business is slightly different, but why would people come to you, or why should they come to you? What's the things that you normally see that's maybe not going to plan? I'm not saying going wrong, but not going to plan.
For me, it's the companies want to improve. They come to me because they're ready to go to that next stage, and they want process and they want systems in place. But the biggest challenge is when they just want to force it upon people. And this is where one of my biggest skills is getting the team on board with it, to get them to understand it and buy into it. Because if you get change thrown at you, there's some people in companies, again, maybe some of these people you talk about.
Most people don't like change.
They don't, and they're scared of it. And I think it's getting them to understand. But this is it. I think it's selling. You got to sell the idea. You have to be a natural salesman.
How do you do that?
Yes.
How do you sell the idea? Tell me what you would do. So let's say I bring you into my business. We've got a few challenges. We're trying to grow. We're trying to put in some processes. You've got a team of 5 or 6 people. You're sitting in a boardroom. What would you do?
I'd go and just say to everyone, I wouldn't just go and absolutely package it together and say, this is going to be this amazing thing and it's only going to be good. I'd go ahead and say, this is what you need to do. Here are the pros, but here are some cons, and here's how we're going to get over the cons. Yeah. And these are the benefits. I like to think that most businesses do things not just because they're a pain in the ass. They're doing something because it's for the best of the business and for their team. And it's just getting that team to understand that we're doing this, and it's going to be it might be, let's say,
why you're doing it, where the role they play in that.
Yeah, and we put this system in place. I put a project management, a really complex project management system, and the team need the buy-in. And they're just wondering, well, why are we doing this? It's taking me so much more time. I was like, look, you might have to do this, but this is what the other departments are going to be able to get. And that might not be any use to you and your job, but this is what we're able to do. We're able to do so much more reporting. We're able to do so much more analytics and get so much more information. Yeah. And it might not feel like it'll be worth it now, but in 8 months' time, when you're looking at it and you've got all this data you can go back on, you'll be absolutely laughing. And it's just telling them in a really honest way, this is why we're doing it, and then constantly checking in with them. So not just training it and saying, I've shown you this on day one. I always have a bit of a system of, okay, have I shown you it? Do you know, have I shown you it once? Do you know how to use it? And are you competent at it? So you're constantly going back so they feel confident with it. But yeah, I think the most important thing for me is not, again, buying at the top, it's buying at the team level, because they're the ones doing it.
Yeah. Here's a great quote for you from Confucius. And this is, thousands and thousands of years old. I think 2,500 years old or something. And Confucius says, tell me and I will forget. Show me and I will understand. Show me and I will remember. Involve me and I will understand. And I think that's what makes a great leader.
Yes.
Isn't it? Is because what tends to happen, and this is going back to what you said there, what tends to happen, and I don't mean everybody, but what a lot of managers do is they sit down with their team, they tell them all the things they're going to do, they give them they say, oh, you go and go and do it. And you mentioned the fear of change, you're like, whoa, danger, don't like this, what if I can't do it? Rather than sitting down and asking, this is what we're thinking of doing, team. How do you think this is going to work for you? How do you think you can help? And get them to tell you why they think it's going to be a good idea. Because once they tell you it's going to be a good idea, they own it, not you.
Yeah, and I suppose going back, and that's maybe one thing I kind of missed out of exactly that point of getting them to make it look like it's actually part of, they're part of it, because that's one thing as well. You don't want it to be inflicted on you. You want to feel part of it. So maybe during the demo, bring a couple of teams to demo. They can become advocates for it and they'll champion it, because it's all good leadership saying this is what we're going to be using. But if you get someone else, actually no, I've used this and I think this is actually quite good, they'll listen to their team members a lot more of that. So get them involved, and you could just say it's a little bit of manipulation that side, but actually you're just selling the idea to them.
It's called great leadership. Ask really good questions. Get somebody to feed you back. And a lot of people say, well, but I don't know, James. But if you did know, what would you do?
Yeah.
Well, if I did know, I'd probably do, that's a great idea, James. I think that's a really good idea. You've influenced the conversation.
Yeah.
They've come up with the solution. Job done.
Yeah.
Got a question for you.
Right.
Another question. We're going to get wrapped up. So ask all my guests this. What's your top 3 pieces of advice in business and or in life?
So it's maybe this. I've got a quote that's maybe not quite Confucius from 2,000 years ago. It's something I heard on Park and Recs, the sitcom, and it is, don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. So like put everything into what you're doing. And yes, you might, again, you've got all different responsibilities in life, but give your all to all of it, or don't bother doing something if you're only going to put, again, half the
I've got a quote that answers exactly the same as that. It's a really old famous quote, and I don't know who it's with, and it says, chase 2 hares, catch none. So if you try and chase 2 rabbits or 2 hares, you'll not catch any of them.
Yeah.
But if you focus on one, that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Focus on something, do a really great job. Love that.
Yes.
Love that.
The second one, I'd say again, and I think anyone who's worked with me will probably understand what I mean here, is again, just be your unapologetic self. Like, if you don't, I worked in a place before where I was in I think it was quite a highly professional industry, and again, I'm a lot more casual with people. I can be informal. I do a lot of jokes, and that's me, and that's how I lead my teams and everything else. Because I'm not got that ego. I'm not going to be using a lot of the business cliches that make me feel a bit important, full of ego.
I don't use cliches at all.
Yeah, absolutely. But I kind of find a lot of people do it because they feel maybe insecure in their positions, or I don't. And by being myself, I think it's refreshing when I go to calls and I'm having a laugh and a joke with people, and I can do that, because if you feel that you have to be censored and you're not yourself, you're not going to enjoy it. Or the worst thing, you'll end up turning into someone.
I don't do censorship. Don't like it.
Yeah, and that's why I love your.
What you see is what you get.
That's why I love your stuff on LinkedIn, because it's you, and I'm still getting used to it when I'm doing stuff on LinkedIn, because I'm still.
I just go for it, don't I?
Yeah, and I still look at, sometimes I see some comments and from people, and I'm like taking it like personally. I want to reply back to them, and actually I'm like, yeah.
See, this is how I think about LinkedIn, right or wrong. I'm huge on LinkedIn, as you know. I'm really active in it, and I think it's a fantastic platform. See if I get a comment that's, I'm going to say nasty, but someone that's no a difference of opinion, but someone that's you're just like, what?
Yeah.
I just delete and block.
Yeah.
Because I thought, you're not my ideal. I wouldn't want to work with somebody like you. I wouldn't want to be so I just delete and block them. I don't even answer. Delete, block. Done.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I still need to get used to that.
Number 3 for
yeah. Freedom first for me is it's more. I say this more of a personal one. This is learn to know what makes you happy, and not always keep chasing more and more. I think I find a lot of people. I read something once that if someone's on 15,000, they want 30,000. Someone who's on 30,000 will always want 50,000. Someone on 50 want 100. Someone on 100 want 250, and then someone going on and. Basically, people just not being happy and always constantly chasing. And I kind of feel that people should understand what's really important to them and learn. Okay, this is what I'm happy with. Finally work out what I'm content with. Doesn't mean not to be ambitious and still kind of want more and push yourself for it. But a lot of people do it at the expense of the happiness.
Absolutely.
And again, I think
it's knowing where that line is, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think knowing, again, especially kind of working for myself as well, it's very easy. So I'm very happy with the work that I've gotten at the moment. But there's been times where I've maybe seen other people who've maybe started businesses similar time or other things, and they're doing this and that, and I'm like, oh, I want that. And
but remember, not everything you see is real.
Exactly.
Not everything you see is real. That's one thing I learned.
And I think, and again, you obviously you were in the golf, so you must have seen a lot of people with a lot. And again, I kind of feel with that, it's just understanding, you don't understand what people are going through, but some people wear it very differently, and they show off the nice car and the nice watch and everything else. But I think there's a lot of people who just aren't happy, and they kind of they just keep going and they keep chasing something, and then when they get to it, they're still not happy because they constantly want more. So understand what's important to you, and just make sure when is enough, because you still want to grow, but be happy in what you're doing. And
I always think, I love learning. I love constantly learning new things, new stuff, new ideas, new systems, new processes. I love learning. And I think it's the day I stop, I think I'm not really growing any longer. That's the day you decide it's what's next. Listen, we are right at the end of the podcast. I wanted to say thank you. By the way, all your details will be in the podcast, but if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how do they reach out to you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, so I'm always responding to messages. Where my website, opsessed.co.uk, OPSESSED. And again, my details will be on the show notes as well.
Brilliant.
And yes, but thank you very much for having me, James.
Absolute pleasure.
It's been absolute
pleasure.
pleasure.
It would be a good conversation. Done it nice and easy. Listen, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.